There have been some considerable victories in Championship cricket history, but few larger than Kent's mammoth innings and 279-run hammering of Leicestershire inside 3 days in Canterbury. Day 3 of this LV County Championship match began with Kent still batting in their first innings. They resumed on 404 for 6, which already had them 263 runs ahead, and James Treadwell was soon building further on that. Having almost grinded their opponents into the dust with the bat on the second day, Kent came out to be positive, but in doing so they lost Mike Powell early. He'd added only 1 run to his overnight 133 when he edged a drive off Nathan Buck to Will Jefferson. Treadwell had backed Powell up brilliantly on the previous evening, and with his partner now gone, he could come into his own. This shot took the spinner to his first 50 in nearly 2 years. It had taken him 122 balls to get there, in an innings which had just about banged in the final nail of Leicestershire's coffin in this match. Sometimes just nothing goes your way, and that was very much the case for Leicestershire here. Even though they got rid of their biggest threat, Powell, early, they were now met by Matt Coles, who simply piled on more agony. Kent's tactics were now becoming both mentally and physically challenging for Leicestershire, who'd been in the field for nearly 2 days, and no end to the Kent innings was yet in sight. In an innings already including some hefty partnerships, Treadwell and Coles added another 89 in 20 overs. About the only thing that prevented this from being a 100% perfect showing from Kent is that Treadwell didn't reach 100 for only the 4th time in his career. 13 runs short, he was bowled by Claude Henderson, who'd now given up thoughts of any celebration. The final 20 minutes before lunch saw Kent suddenly change gear. In doing so, Coles got in a muddle to give Henderson his 4th wicket. Coles was out for 47, while Mark Davies struck Henderson for a 6 before being stumped to give the spinner figures of 5 for 116 from 50.4 overs. Poor Leicestershire had been in the field for 11 hours, for 172 overs in total by the time Kent were dismissed at lunch for 533, for a first innings lead of 392. It was hardly a surprise that the exhausted batsmen then started to follow one another back to the pavilion. After Jefferson had padded up to Charlie Shrek to go LBW in the second over, Jacques du Toit was caught behind off Davis for 11. And half an hour later, things went from bad to terrible. Ramnaresh Sarwan was bowled by Coles off the inside edge. Greg Smith was legged before to Darren Stevens after surviving for 80 minutes for his 11. Preston Momsen was very well grabbed at short leg by Sam Northeast off Treadwell. Josh Cobb edged a cut off the spinner straight to Ben Harmison. And Henderson was bowled by Treadwell to a ball which turned sharply to surprise the batsman. Treadwell had taken 3 for 7 in an 11-ball purple patch. That put Leicestershire on 64 for 7, would you believe? And that soon became 72 for 8 when Ned Eckersley edged Stevens behind. Incredibly, Leicestershire still trailed by 316 runs when they also lost Wayne White, who came in at number 10 and departed to his second ball to give Stevens his 3rd wicket. You did have to feel sorry for Matthew Hoggard, who'd watched in horror as his batsman had failed for a second time in the match. He tried to show them how it should have been done. Hoggard made 18 and Nathan Buck 24, the top 2 scores of the innings, as they added 37 for the last wicket. But the former Leicestershire man, Stevens, finished the game off with a day to spare for figures of 4 for 24 as Buck nicked him behind. The 2 Leicestershire innings combined had lasted 100 overs in comparison to the 172 used up by Kent in their 1 knock. The margin of victory was an innings and 279 runs as Leicestershire were humbled for only 113. Their season is worryingly following a similar pattern to the last one, with a win in their first match and no others to follow. They collected only 1 point from this game. Kent took 22 for their second win of the campaign, which puts them into the top 2, 10 points ahead of Yorkshire, who have a game in hand.